Steps I Took podcast.
Sitting with us. We're back again. Great to be here.
And how have you been?
Good. Busy week.
Yeah.
Busy week. We're doing so much at the moment, so many events, but it's good. It's all good things. The bags under my eyes says it all, but we're here.
Yeah,
we're
good
thriving.
stuff, man. And we got another guest on the show today.
A very special guest today, actually. She is very special because she has done what so many people want to do, and which is change careers multiple times and fulfill their dreams or their passions, or even just something that they thought of something and they've actually gone with it.
Yeah.
There's so many people that have an idea that might write it down or never write it down and never pursue it. Whereas this wonderful woman not only has done that, but she helps pull people along the way and support them to do whatever it is they need to do. She's helped me multiple times. I know she's supported you too.
Yeah.
And I love being a fly on the wall, watching her journey, to be quite honest.
Yeah, man.
So thank you for coming and joining us.
Thank you for that very overwhelming introduction. Thanks, guys.
Welcome, Kirsty.
Thank you for being the overwhelming woman that you are.
Thank you back.
Honestly, because we don't just come here and chat shit. You're actually a very inspiring woman. There's so many teachers I know that want to come out of teaching, and I'm sure you probably had the same. As teachers, or former teachers, when you come out of teaching, suddenly everyone's in your DMs. How did you do it?
Yeah.
What did you do? What's the secret? I just did it. You know?
I think that's probably one of my most asked questions. How did you do it? And it's well, first and foremost, I basically was told it's you stay as a teacher and you stop doing all this other stuff you've built and been doing for the past 18 months. You go. And that's basically what happened. Yeah, really.
What's an entry point to this?
Yeah.
I know. You know what? That's juicy, and I think we need to definitely spend some time on that. But we have a tradition at the beginning of the podcast where we ask all our guests the same question.
Okay.
Do you want to ask it? Or?
Yes. What has been the best part of your week so far?
I am working on something really, really exciting, and I think the best part of my week has been seeing all the visuals come together. So when you imagine something and you have something in your head and you explain it to creatives, it's when it comes back and it's that's the reality of my bubble out of my brain. So that's been the most. I was still doing that as I walked in here today. That's been the most exciting thing for me this week. Something that I've wanted to do for a really, really long time is coming together. And I think seeing it and knowing that it's a reality and it's going to happen is that's been amazing. So that's been the best part of my week.
Fantastic. We're excited to hear about that.
Yeah, for sure. So, Kirsty, talk us through early years. You know, obviously, you're from the UK, right? And now you're in Dubai. But what was childhood like for Kirsty? Did you always have an ambition to become a teacher? You know, you mentioned you were a teacher.
Yeah.
What was early stages of life like?
I've got to be completely honest. I had a really amazing childhood. I am extremely lucky. My parents worked extremely hard. For as long as I can remember, me and my sister have never really wanted for anything. The things we might have wanted would have been Sky TV and straighteners. Yeah. And what we probably didn't realise as kids. So I have a younger sister. She's 3 years younger than me. My sister spent her 5th birthday on a plane to Australia. I went on holidays. There's pictures of me on holiday from birth, basically. Something my parents really prioritized was travel and seeing the world and having experiences. So material things weren't always a big priority. But don't get me wrong, I grew up in a beautiful house. I went to a nice school. I had a really, really lovely childhood. So I feel a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of people, they always come from this struggle, and it's I didn't have that. I was so lucky in the fact that I've had parents who have basically told me well, if you want to go and do that. What's the worst that's going to happen? My mum has drilled into me from a young age the worst thing anyone can ever say to you is no.
Yeah.
So I think that's amazing.
I want to just say that this is actually so beautiful to hear. It's so nice because as a woman aspiring to have a family, a beautiful home, hearing that it can be achieved and a great woman can come out of it is obviously a really nice thing to hear. It's not, everyone has their story, but hearing good stories, especially in Dubai, with this dating scene, knowing that actually you can grow a wholesome home and produce wonderful children and adults out of it is fantastic.
Yeah, and like, don't get me wrong, everyone's had bad days. Like, I didn't particularly love school, which is crazy because I always wanted to be a teacher. But I think a part of me was like, I didn't love school because of the teachers that I had and the environment that I felt like a school was. And, you know, I was like, I was a fat kid and like, I was always like super hairy arms, super hairy legs, like dark hair. Like, so, you know, I didn't have a nice time at school. And I think that was like a real driving force for me for wanting to be a teacher. But I had a really like lovely, supportive home life. Like, don't get me wrong, you know, my mum and dad would have arguments. We'd all argue with each other when we were teenagers, like when we were growing up, whatever. Like, of course, like it wasn't like sunshines and rainbows every day, but I can't sit here and tell you like I didn't have an amazing childhood. Like, I traveled the world. Like, I went everywhere. Like, I, you know, emotionally and physically didn't want for anything. My parents were there for me and they still are now. Like, I talk to my mum every single day. My dad's a bit more useless on the text messages, but he's always like, I know he's always asking my mum how I am. My dad's like quite like wants to have a little Zoom like every week and just ask me like, don't like
That's so sweet.
yeah.
That's nice,
And he's like, don't get me wrong, he's always like, well, how are you going to do that? And what are you going to do? And blah, blah, blah. And like, I think because my dad sometimes can be glass half empty and my mum's so glass half full that like they come together. Like,
It's a beautiful balance.
Yeah. And like, I think I've got like the best of both of them and the worst of both of them. Like, my dad's got a super short fuse. Like, don't get me wrong, he's not abusive. But like short temper. And for a long time in my life, I was very similar. Like, I'd snap, I'd be so reactive. And then like as an adult, like I made decisions and did things because that's not how I wanted to be. So, but yeah, like I'm really, really lucky and I was really well supported. And to this day, like I know if I picked up the phone right now and said to my dad, like, I need help or I need this or I need that, be done. And that's like an amazing thing to have in your life.
Yeah, it must be nice to have like that security going up because then you kind of feel like you're free to kind of just do whatever. You mentioned you traveled quite a lot. What was like your favorite sort of holiday as a kid?
So my dad loves playing poker. So I've been to Vegas like 15 times.
Wow.
I went for the first time when I was about 11. And I used to love Las Vegas. And people used to be like, what do you mean you're going to Las Vegas? But like Las Vegas is seen as this like seedy adults playground, but there's actually a mad amount of stuff there for kids. And I remember we used to always stay in this hotel and it had like a bowling alley and a playground and a cinema. And like, I remember me and my sister being young and going to like a Bow Wow concert and like Fergie. And like, we used to go and do all this amazing stuff. We pretty much went every single year until, when I was 21, I went with one of my friends and it was like a totally different experience, of course. But yeah, like that was amazing. We went to Australia, like we did a lot of like Spain. We went to, on my own, I went to more places in America, like, but yeah, went to Vegas a lot, but loved it. Like, and actually when I went back as an adult, I was like, this is not as good.
Where's the what's like?
I used to like, I remember me, my mum and my sister used to like I love shopping and my mum loves shopping. My sister's not as about it. We used to go to like outlets in America. Like, you remember when America was so cheap for us and we'd go and like shop all day and go to the Cheesecake Factory and like that was such a novelty. Like now we live in a city that is like, we've got everything here, right?
It's true.
But yeah, no, I loved that. And I always remember like my mum used to always take us up to London because we're from Essex, but my parents are from like Watford, North London. So we used to always go up to London and go to markets and go to shows and like,
you had a great childhood.
I had a great childhood.
Yeah.
And sometimes like in my adult life when things have like don't get me wrong, I've had times where I've dealt with a lot of stuff and I've been depressed and I've had things go wrong. Like, and I've tried to explain to my mum. My mum has been like, you know, was I a good mum and all this? I'm like, of course you were. Like you're not only was you a great mum then, you're like a great mum now. The fact that I can ring you and be like, I feel like this or this is happening, that's, you know, that is completely to do with the fact that you're such a good mum. And like my dad is a different character, but also if there's a crisis, that I ring him. I'm like, Dad, I want to come home. He's like, get on a plane. I'm like, okay. So yeah, I'm very lucky in that sense. Like there's highs and lows like there always is, but I'm lucky that I've got two people that stand behind me and beside me.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. So I know you as a woman who's like quite firm, can be quite direct, confident, all of these things, go-getter. But you said that obviously in school you felt like shy and all of those other kinds of feelings. So how did you go from that to this?
I don't know. I think in later life, like I have basically been told by 2 therapists that I probably have ADHD or ADD or something like that. And now so as an adult, I've like really researched it and I listened to lots of podcasts about it and I've read books and, I've really delved into like my attachment style and the way I react to stuff. And I think, to be honest with you, if, now it's like a bit of and this is not me putting it down, but it's a bit of a buzz that everyone's got something, right? Yeah. Everyone's got a label, everyone's got something. But in the flip side of that is, I think if you read into something and you understand it, it helps you, process why you're feeling on these days a certain way. When you're a kid, like I would go strong and saying bullied. I was bullied, I was picked on, like, because I have always been outspoken and opinionated and bossy and loud and, I've always been all of these things. And when you're a kid, like, teachers don't like that. Like, it's unbelievable to me that I really was a teacher because I hated school. I was a terrible student. But, like, I don't know, like, yeah, I think I've always been me. I haven't always been okay with being me. Whereas now I'm okay with being me. Like, I'm okay. Like, I always wanted people to like me. I was devastated if people didn't like me. I wanted to be popular. I wanted to be liked. I wanted, to be everyone's friend. I wanted everyone to think I was pretty and skinny and this and that and that. And like that saw me all the way through to like pretty much being like 16 years old. And a massive thing for me was my parents took me out of my secondary school for my A-levels and I went to a sixth form school in a different town. Still wasn't the easiest thing ever, but it was like I got a new start. I got to be a new person because I'd been with these same people from 5 to 16.
It's a long time.
And I couldn't break that cycle. I was Campbell. I was the tomboy. I was this, I was that. Like, I couldn't break that cycle. So when I went to sixth form in a completely different town, like, 40 minutes from where I'd gone to school, it was like, I'll get to be Kirsty. And I think it was that. I'm always envious. My little sister has friends from like school, primary school friends. My friends, I have like a childhood friend from birth because our mums met in hospital. A friend from horse riding when I was like 10. And then all my other friends I met at uni. And I feel like uni was probably the beginning of being myself. And so like then that's kind of also supports the fact that like they're my real friends. Because they knew the real me. But I am envious of people that are like, oh, this is my best friend since I was 5, like,
I know exactly what you mean.
If you have that, I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, same. I think it's really nice. But like you said, it's also nice. The whole thing in this life is to feel comfortable and feel at peace. And whether you met those people that you feel comfortable and at peace with at 5 or 25, it is what it is. Do you know what I mean? So as long as you have that, that's the main thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. No, and I liked like what you said in terms of like, when you found who you were, that's when, you had the authentic friendships and stuff. Because like nothing is worse than doing life with people who think you're someone that you're not, right?
Yeah, and I think honestly, like I said to you before we started, like probably up until 18 months ago, 2 years ago, I was pretending to be a version of myself what I still felt was the most acceptable version of myself. And we've touched on it lightly, like that Dubai girl and why we started that. Like, I think what people don't really realise is maybe the backstory to how that came about.
Let's go into the backstory. I think I know the backstory, but I'd like to hear it in more detail.
Okay, so that Dubai girl was originally just like my Instagram, and it was a bit of an alter ego. It was probably... So I was a teacher, a traditional teacher, and then for a year I was a governess. So I worked with one family and I travelled with them, and it just totally changed my life because I went from being like in a very rigorous like school environment to then working with one kid. And sometimes I'd go to work, sometimes I didn't, sometimes we'd go skiing, like sometimes we'd go to Egypt because we were learning about the Egyptians. Like it was a complete wild year. And so that kind of, I started going out and I started meeting new people and I started doing events and you know, doing stuff that I'd done at uni on a bigger scale here. And I remember basically being in a like beach club. I was running a brunch for like a UK brand, and the manager being like so rude to me and being like, you think you're a Dubai girl now or something like that. And the guy who's still such a really good friend of mine now, George, he owns a brand called Love Juice, turning around and being like, she's not a Dubai girl, she's that Dubai girl. And I was like, I'm going to make that my Instagram. And like, that's how it began. And then how it began as a community, other than, and I think people forget, like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when that Dubai girl was born, and this goes back to like the alter ego, like wanting to be perceived as something other than something, like influences and influencing was not as big. Like it really wasn't a thing. It was kind of like still like people were like, what, you're posting pictures of yourself, you're a narcissist, you're so shallow, you're this, you're that. Like now it's normal, everyone does it, right? We all do it every single day. You go to the gym, you take a picture. Like if I didn't take a picture, I wasn't here. But like 6 years ago, it wasn't. It was abnormal. You want to be a celebrity. You think you're not. Like it was such a weird evolution. And then how the community began was because basically there was another community in Dubai that was meant to be this big like supportive girls community. And they basically did something that was not supportive. We won't tarnish any names.
Can you say what they did without tarnishing any names?
Basically, they said they were an inclusive community, but then they made...
But were they just inclusive for one ethnicity?
Yes, yeah. They were just basically inclusive if you were Western. And then their definition of Western was getting a bit mixed up because it was like, well, what's Western? Like, I'm Swedish, I'm Australian, like... And it got to the point where I think they were actually asking people for copies of their passport. And one of my now absolute best friends, like I say to her, if you get rid of your husband, like we'll live together and we'll have a happy life. Like in a non-romantic way. But she's like my soulmate. Yeah, that's how we met. And she was friends with a girl who was basically rejected from the group and asked to send in a copy of her passport because she's of Indian ethnicity, but she's British.
Wow.
And I was drinking a bottle of wine with my mate at the time, and I was like,
I'm not having it.
I'm not having it. Like, I probably said something a little bit different to that. So I just basically went online and was like, right, we're going to make a group. It's going to be called That Dubai Girl. And it's going to be like, you can sit with us, the opposite of Mean Girls. And it honestly, it was like a giant classroom because it was like, if you've got nothing nice to say nothing. And we went so hard, like little team of us, so hard on that rule. That like if someone was being nasty, bang, remove, see you later. Like we didn't care about our numbers. We cared about it being a safe space. And hand on heart, until the day I handed it over, and part of the terms of like the sale and handing it over was that you have to maintain this.
And to be fair, I can advocate all good things, and people write in there all the time, I'm lonely or split up with my boyfriend, and all it is just supportive women just coming in like herds to support the woman in question.
And also, like, don't get me wrong, like, people have their opinions and people say, oh, I don't agree with you or this, that and the other. And you get people, like, reporting it because they don't agree. But no, that's not what it's about. You're allowed to say what you want to say as long as you're not targeting that person and being like, oh, you're an idiot, blah, blah, blah. Like, but it is a safe space. And, like, I've had people come up to me and, you know, be like, oh, because of that community, this has happened for me. Or because of that community, I found this. Or my business grew, or I did this. Like, it has always been about community. And I think that's the biggest misconception, that people always think I built it as a business. I didn't build it as a business. It was never, ever meant to be a business. And as much as people believe it was this big, mega successful business, it wasn't. It was a business that was kept alive by a group of women. And even when we got some advertising money or we got some bits and bobs, it was minimal, guys. Minimal. Like the majority of the stuff that people saw was all barters and was all like, oh, that's my favourite gym. You give me a free gym membership, I'm going to promote you. And it was also always about the authenticity. Like, I made a comment when I kind of wrote about leaving, was like, it didn't matter how much money you threw at us. Like, we had people offer us really great money to promote things. Like, we're not promoting it. Like, we're not going to promote stuff we don't believe in, that we wouldn't do ourselves. The first time I ever got Botox was because of that Dubai girl. Like, you know, all these things that we went and did it all ourselves. Like, we were guinea pigs and we did it ourselves. And if we weren't willing to do it ourselves, we weren't going to tell anyone else to do it.
I love that. And unfortunately, I think that authenticity gets lost a lot, especially out here, because people get desperate and start just taking the bag instead of actually staying true to their values and morals. So it's really nice that
it's true. It's true. I've seen like so many like influencers in Dubai in particular like promote products that I know that they're not using. Do you know what I mean? But that's interesting to know that, you know, it started off as a community, because I guess when I kind of met you, I saw community elements to it, but I saw it as a business, you know. So that's quite interesting to learn that. So you were teaching and you had this sort of eureka moment because of George, and then that Dubai girl came about. Like,
she was born.
Yeah, she's born.
It's like Sasha Fierce. She was born.
So like, how did you like juggle the two?
So I think something that people maybe don't realise unless they're close to me is that Dubai girl was born in a June. So this was just at the back end of the summer holidays when it was started, and I went back into the school and I was literally like going to meetings after school, because the beauty of a school, right, is you finish at like 3:30. 4. Teachers have a very hard job. I'm not criticising them, because you also have to get up
at 7.
Yeah, exactly. So I was leaving and I was going to these meetings like every day, 4:30, 5 o'clock. Sometimes I was doing like multiple meetings, because the only way I got to know people was by going out and physically meeting them. So for quite a long time, I would say for at least like until like the November, I would say I was doing both. All on my own, like I say all on my own in terms of like the commercial side of it. My friends were helping me run the group. Like we had a group of us doing like the approvals. People don't realize how mental that is. Like literally it's a full-time job. And then we did an event, like we did like a Dubai girl sleepover, and we had like basically like 80 women come to a hotel.
At the 5?
Is
No.
that the Radisson one?
Radisson one,
That's where I met you at?
Yeah.
Not that I was at a girl's sleepover. Let me just put that out
Didn't you DJ the party or come to the party?
Yeah.
So we had like a girls sleepover, but we had a big rooftop party. And I think you DJ'd or Nana came and DJ'd.
Yeah,
and,
both of us,
and that was how we first met. And so that was kind of the first ever event. And that was the first ever insight we ever got to like brands working with us, because the hotel had approached us. The brands came on board. Like my hairdresser now was the hairdresser that came and did 50 blow dries and has been my hairdresser ever since, and is one of my like best friends now, Ruth. And it was crazy, and we did it, and then that kind of triggered a lot more. And then we were doing like pop-up markets, so we were bringing in little like homegrown brands, and we were like, oh, you're doing candles, you know, we had like hair extensions and all this stuff. And this is where I met Mel. So Mel came, we did a market on the Palm, and it was a disaster. Like literally no one came. No one came. It's a disaster. But they did bottomless Bellinis. A lot of my best stories involve alcohol, which is ironic because now I don't drink. And we met, and I remember we sat there, we were drinking these Bellinis, chatting about everything. And she was telling me how she'd just been made redundant from Uber. So Uber Eats and Uber, like that segment of Uber had like died in the Middle East. And I was like, and she had this, it's now, I think she's no longer doing it, but it was called Dixie's Boutique. It was like the bougie dog beds and the bougie cat beds. You know, like people would have all these things. And so she was like, yeah, I'm just doing this. So shall I help you? And I was like, well, I've got no money. Like I can pay you pittance. And when we say pittance, I probably was paying like 1,000 dirhams a month. Like that's how it all began. And she just came on board, and that was it. And then like she became like, she owned a percentage of the business. And actually, for pretty much the last 18 months, that Dubai girl has been run by Mel. And Mel actually, you know, when we sold the business, she took her percentage, but she's gone with the business to the new owner to still be the head of partnerships for them, because she's a massive part of it. She just never wanted to be the face of it.
Okay, interesting.
But yeah.
When you obviously met Mel, how did you, obviously you've created a baby. How did you say, oh, do you know what, I've just met you, but I'm just going to trust you and this is going to be great?
We went to brunch.
So after the Bellinis,
a week later, we went on a freebie that was like a deal, like come to brunch. We went to this brunch and we chatted, and I was like, you know, this is kind of what I do. Like, do you think you would do it? And she was like, yeah, I don't want to be really on film, but I'll make the videos and I'll do the stuff with you. Even though she was in quite a lot of videos.
I know who she is.
Yeah,
from the videos.
yeah. And I don't know. I just was like, I didn't. At the start, our relationship was like, you're going to be my admin. Like, you're going to make this fake it till you make it, baby. Like, we're going to show the world, like, we're a big business. And I'm going to be at school. So you're going to, I'm going to be at school teaching the future. So you're going to be, on this email address, on this phone number, and you're going to like, she was a partnership manager for Uber Eats. She was managing big companies. So she knew what she was going to do. And she knew how she was going to get people in. So yeah, that's kind of...
So because she already had a profession in an industry that you needed support with, you're like, yeah, this is actually lit.
And she wasn't working anymore. And, her now husband, he was just like, she'd gone through such a like horrible time when she was made redundant. It was such a devastating thing for her. And she had a big team, and it was kind of really unpleasant situation that she was like, I don't want to work for a big business. Like, I'm going to build this business. I'm going to do my hustles. Like, I'm with my partner. Like, I'm just going to have a go kind of thing. So it was, I always say to this day, if Mel hadn't have come into my life, that Dubai girl would never be what it is today, or what it was when I sold it. So
when you were at the bunch and you kind of decided to kind of come together, did you envisage what would come, or like did you kind of say, okay, yeah, like, and then we can do this and grow it, or like did you just not fathom
think of all the free stuff we can get, Mel. Like, if we build Instagram to like 20,000 followers, like, think of all the cool free stuff we can get. And honestly, for like, I was 29 when we started it. I'm now nearly 35. Like, it was the...
Oh my God, it's been 6 years.
Since the first, like, when we started it, like, it was, like, when it was my Instagram. Yeah, it was before my 30th. And then Mel came on board. I think the Facebook group was born a year later, and Mel came on about 6 months after that. So when I sold it, I'd had it for like nearly 5 years as a company. But no, and you know what people always say to me? They're like, you've sold it, like, they're going to do this, they're going to do this, they're going to make millions. Good luck to them. I hope they do make millions, because it's not from a business perspective, I consider myself, like, I've had a lot of highs and lows, but I now consider myself to be a pretty good business person and pretty savvy. And I could sit here now and I could tell you a 10-point plan to make that into a $1 million dirham business. But I didn't want to do it. And Mel didn't want to do it either. And it was like the only way that's going to happen. Like, what do I want? I want a legacy. Like, I want it to be, like, it's an amazing thing for me to say, I built something that wasn't even meant to be a business, and I sold it and I made money.
That's lit.
Yeah.
Like, that's an amazing feeling for me. Like, someone messaged me and was like, you're officially an entrepreneur now. I was like, oh my God. I'm so excited. But yeah, no, I never thought it was gonna be the forever plan. But it was amazing, and it has been the reason why I'm where I am today. Like, there's no question about that. If I hadn't have had that Dubai girl, I wouldn't have the network I had. At peak, we had 500 partners. 500 partners.
That's a lot.
Yep. And that was like when I was 100% all in. Mel was 100% all in, and we were like bang, 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 that Dubai girl every single day. We had 500 partners at peak, and we're talking like big brands like Hilton, Barry's, like Faces, Sephora. Like, we had peak brands involved. Like, but in true Kirsty form, I didn't like anyone else telling me what to do. And the minute that you start working with all these big brands and you have all these obligations, you have to deliver on what other people want you to do. And I was just getting a bit sick of being a puppet. And I kind of went from loving going to the opening of like literally everything. I went to everything, to being like, no, I don't want to go out. I don't want to do it. So yeah, that was the tipping point. And that probably happened about 18 months ago for me. As urban market, I was like picking up. I was like, I actually really like this a lot more. And when I finished my first like major event, which was about 2.5 years ago, I was like, actually, I really like doing this.
So you had that Dubai girl, you went all in on that, but then you started events as well.
Yeah, so I've been doing events since I was like before university. Like, I've been door girls, hostesses, worked for brunches, was on like the student board at uni, and was the person that when you freshers week and did all that stuff. So I think events is something I've liked doing for a long time, and that comes from my mum. Like, my mum was also worked in education. She worked in IT education, but she was used to like be organising like a summer fete or a book club or this or that. Like, so that kind of desire to organise comes from my mum. So yeah, I was always kind of doing things from like 17, 18. Like I think the minute I was 18, I was a door girl at a club, like, and I loved it. I was like, when I was a door girl here, I loved it. Like, I just loved meeting all people and talking to people and like the glam of it, and I just really enjoyed it. Like, so.
Yeah, even at the brunch, like I remember the launch when we launched the brunch, and your energy was just like, you know, like
it's the ADHD, bro. It's just like you chuck a couple of Red Bulls in this, and it's like woohoo! But yeah, I love. It's so funny because some days I'm like, I hate everyone. I hate people and I hate everyone. But in a social environment, I don't. Like I thrive in that environment, and I love being with people, and I love meeting new people. I always say, possibly this might come across arrogant, but I'm like, if you put me in a room of 100 people, I'd talk to 99 before the time was over. Like, so yeah, I was doing the events for other people, and then that Dubai Girl kind of allowed me to do some events myself, but it wasn't quite what I wanted. Like, I've always wanted to build a music festival. Like, that's my ultimate, like, that's what I want to do. Like, Glastonbury, Wireless, I'm coming for you all. Like,
love this.
So, yeah, that's what I wanted. So I was like, I want to get in the music scene. I had friends who were producers, friends who were DJs. I got into that scene. And yeah, it just kind of stemmed from there. But honestly, how I got into like the big major events was like, honestly, pure like answered the phone. So left teaching, basically got fired. Was in Croatia on holiday, and the phone rang, and it was like this person. They were like, oh, we've seen Urban Market. So Urban Market had just been born just before I got ceremoniously asked to leave education. So yeah, that Dubai Girl was just about, as a community, was just over a year old, and we started Urban Market because we had a partner, and they were like, showed us a space, and they were like, what could you do here? They were like, do that Dubai Girl Market. And I was like, no. This place it's now a piece of an arena, which I'm sure you've been there. Yeah. I was like, no, it needs to be like Camden, like vibey. It needs to be a separate brand. It can't be nothing to do with that Dubai Girl. Like, people should not know that they're even owned by the same person.
I see Kirsty's face.
Yeah, I mean, now they see my face, but at the start they didn't.
Yeah.
And people used to meet me and they'd be like, what? Like, because I was like this little school teacher, like, hiya, like coordinating this like grungy, like urban, like hip hops, like thing, and it was nothing to do with my persona whatsoever. And even now, that's not my persona. I just pretend it is when I go there. I'm like, oh yeah, I've got my trainers on, and like I'm cool. Let me wear my jorts. But yeah, so what I'm really good at is organising stuff. Like, so yeah, we built the brand, and it was so successful. I think by the third week, I was earning as much in a week as I was earning in a month as a teacher. So I was like, hang on, that Dubai Girl is not making this kind of money, but this brand seems to be like, this is a missing thing. Like, there doesn't seem to be that here. Like, in the rest of the world, it's very common. Like, but here it wasn't.
And you just took a trip recently, right, to get more stock?
Yeah, I went to Japan. I use it. Oh, I love shopping. Like, any excuse. Like, I was there in like all the stores, like on video call to like, I've got a couple of people who work very closely to me, like OG vendors from day one of Urban Market. And I was like, Benny, can we sell this? Like, is this good? He's like, go to Avizu, go here, go there, like buy all this stuff. Because it was just so much cheaper. I had 107 kilos of luggage when I left Japan.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
lit.
Yeah, and it's pretty much, I think like 50% of it's been sold. So
wow.
Yeah, but I loved it. Japan is unbelievable, and like, aside from Dubai, I've never really thought I could live anywhere else in the world. I went to Singapore last year and I was like, yep, amazing. Love Singapore. Really cool. Went to Japan, was like, felt the same way. So, yeah, I loved it. Yeah, and that's kind of how...
So you built Urban Market, someone saw it and said, hey,
yeah,
Kirsty,
someone saw it, rang me up and was like, it was so random. They were like, we're Dubai Racing Club. We've seen your market. And we've seen like you coordinate this market and you have food things, and we need someone to come and help us. And bear in mind, this is like COVID's just been done. Like events are dead, no events people are here. Like budgets have been slashed. Like events is like just barely coming back to life. So I went for a meeting with the racing club, and they were like, "Oh, we were a team of 18. We're now 3. We had a budget of 10 million dirhams. We have 1 million." This is still mad money to me, by the way, because I'm obviously sitting there thinking like, $1 million dirhams, I can do everything. Like, how much does J-Lo cost? Like, you know. So they basically said to me like, we need someone to come on board and coordinate all our food and beverage. So Dubai World Cup is like, you know, it was the richest horse race. It was the richest horse race in the world until Saudi took its title. And basically what happens is on the World Cup day, there's loads of pavilions and like the average person, you know, you and I, buys a ticket, 300 dirhams, goes to what they call the apron views, gets dressed up, goes in the bars, has entertainment, goes in the food court. And they needed someone that was going to come in and coordinate that. So I went with Mel. I was like, come on, Mel, what's the worst that can happen? And we went and we met them and we had a chat and they were like, you know, what about this and what about that? And my answer to everything is like, yeah, of course I can do that. Yeah, of course I can do that. So we walked out and they were like, yeah, we're going to hire you. And Mel was like, how are we going to do this? And I was like, oh, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Was it fun?
It was the most stressful thing I've ever done in my life. Like I actually had PTSD afterwards. Like,
but you did it more than once, no?
I did it once.
Because I think I remember that as well, yeah.
So I did it for nearly 8 months. I did 22 races. Wow. So I did a full season and I did Super Saturday and the Dubai World Cup.
Oh, so that's why I thought you did it more.
Yeah.
I came to a few different times.
100%. 22 races we did.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. And I've got a friend now of a supplier who was one of the first suppliers. Like, I didn't know anyone. Like, I didn't know how to build a concert. I had no idea. I knew McGettigans, and I remember ringing up a couple of other people I knew that had, like, some money, and being like, oh, I've been given this job. And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah, I've been given this job. And they were like, why? And I was like, oh, because I just went in there. And, you know, they told me why they gave me the job was because I used to have, like, horses, and I knew about horses, and that's why they gave me the job. They knew and they just liked me, and they were like, you were so confident you could do it. And they paid me nothing, by the way. Like, when I say they paid me nothing, they actually paid me zero. Like, my salary was zero. Everything was commission. So we got money, but everything was commission. We agreed on a zero salary deal. But I said to Mel, like, it'll be fine. Like, we'll be fine. Like, and we were.
It seems like it seems like going through that process of 22 races that you learned a lot of stuff along the way, which has stood you in good stead for what you're doing now as well.
Yeah, if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't be where I was. Like, that is like, it was a baptism of fire, guys. Like, I never knew how to book an artist. I never knew about power requirements. I never knew about wind loading or like trusses. Like, I had to go in and like, so I met this first supplier who got sent to me by someone. His name's Adam. I still work with him now on projects. And he was talking to me and I was like, yeah, so like what kind of stage would we build? Like, I was asking him questions and he said he went back to his office and told his colleagues about the conversation we'd had. And he was like, this girl is so mental that she's going to probably do this, but it's going to be like sink or swim. And when I came out of it, he was like, I was mental. Like, nah, like I was like this. I was a duck, like under the water. I was panicking, man. But
what do you think was the hardest lesson that you learned throughout that journey? Just that period of 22 races.
I don't know if I can even say some of these things. Don't mix business with pleasure is like one rule that you should definitely do in life. Like the routine is don't shit where you eat, right? That was my biggest mistake, getting involved with someone that I was working with alongside, which was like toxic and horrendous. And probably the worst like relationship, wasn't even a relationship, situationship like that I've ever gone through in my life. Like, to truly understand like how controlling and narcissistic people can be, like that relationship like blew my mind. But that person
learning all these other new things.
But that person was like, I never got away from that person until that was over because they were so heavily involved. I didn't even get away from them straight away as well because it wasn't even about getting away from them. I just kept going back. Like,
it happens to the best.
Moth to the flame, right?
It does. Yeah. But like, no, the biggest lesson was just like, oh my God, should have charged everyone so much more. Like, could have. I said to Mel, I said this only recently. If we did that again, if I could go to sleep tomorrow and wake up and it was 3.5 years ago, I'd be sitting here a millionaire right now. And that's not braggy. That's like, you learn so much. Like, they gave us a hospitality suite for 120 people every single race, free. We didn't know that.
You gave
many
it to us
people.
for free.
Yeah, we didn't know that many people. And then when there was only like 3 races left, people had twigged on to like that we had it, and companies were coming to us and like, well, we'll sponsor it and we'll give you X amount of money and it'll be you and us. And we were like, oh my God, we could have done this like 18 times.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, it was just, we were so green to it. Like we were so green, and yeah, the money we charged people and the deals we did with people that we thought were amazing deals. And now I work on, you know, events that have like $20 million budgets. And I'm like, oh my God, like we were such mugs. But in terms of learnings, never going to learn that. Like no amount of like 10 years, I learned 10 years in 6 months.
It's amazing though, learning on the job rather than. Have you done any courses to like support with all of this development and change? No. Yeah, but sometimes you don't need to.
But you know what? I ask for help a lot. I ask for help, and I go to people who I know are like experts. Like I think that's been my biggest learning is don't be afraid to ask for help. I think that's a big thing here that people like have this front. I used to ring people like sometimes in floods of tears, like this has happened. Like I remember, I won't name any names, don't want to get sued, but booking a specific artist and them like changing their flight and like changing their hotel and then like not telling us that they got on the flight and like the government had a check for $1 million dirhams with mine that I had signed. Like when they gave me the money, I had to give them a blank check, so like $1 million dirham check back. So that I wouldn't flee the country. Like if I fled the country, they could come up. I mean, it's the Dubai government. I'm not running away, guys.
Okay, nowhere.
Your money's getting spent on your event.
Yeah.
And like I was thinking, like if this artist doesn't turn up, like I'm literally fucked. Like I'm wrecked because like I'll go to prison. I'll be deported. Like that was how stressful it was. I did not sleep, and I say this to people, and people are like, "No, that can't be true." I didn't sleep for 2 weeks. I catnapped for 2 weeks, and I tell people this and they don't believe me. My mum is my witness. When it was all over, the night it was over, I couldn't even go to the after party that we had because I was so wrecked. I hadn't been to sleep. I remember my mum being like, come on, let's go home, have a cup of tea. It was like 3 a.m. I'm walking around this site like barefoot while they pull down what I've spent all this time building. And the next day I got up, me and my mum went for lunch at the Dubai Mall. We were sat in the Dubai Mall, it was like 4 p.m. and I was like, Mum, I feel like my body's shutting down. Like I've never felt like this. Went home, I slept for 21 hours.
Wow.
My mum woke me up twice because she was so scared.
You're alive, right?
So the first time she woke me up, she was just like, are you okay? I was like, I'm just so tired. Went back to sleep. Then she woke me up the next time, made me a cream cheese sandwich and have a cup of tea and then let me go out to sleep. But yeah, all in all, I slept for 21 hours.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah. And it was like...
So nice that you had your mum there to just like make sure you're okay.
My mum loved it. Like,
so did she come out for... specifically for that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's good. Yeah.
And like I remember like there's this picture of my mum stood in like obviously like Sheikh Mohammed's like over there. My mum's got a bottle of Moet and she's like it was a WhatsApp picture for so long.
Yeah.
I remember her being like, can I touch that cup? I was like, Mum, absolutely not. She was like, do you think we can ask Sheikh Mo for a photo? I was like, no. Like, he's literally got like 40 armed guards around him. Definitely not. Like, can you imagine standing this close to the Queen? Like, you know, so... But no, it was amazing. It was horrific and amazing.
Yeah. It was all your learning curves.
100%. Like 100%.
So like trying to get a timeline together. So you're doing the Dubai World Cup.
Yeah.
You're still kind of semi juggling that Dubai girl, and then urban market is starting to bubble.
It's born as well.
Yeah. So yeah, what happened then? So did the Dubai World Cup kind of stop, and then you focused on urban market, or?
No, everything kept going simultaneously.
Yeah.
So everything kept going. We opened a shop, which was a complete failure. Like we had the market and we were like, oh, we'll open a shop. Like everyone will come. No, nightmare. Biggest black hole of money. Like all the money we made at the start, put into this shop within 6 months, all the money was gone. And we're talking like 100K. We're not talking like a little bit of money. And I was just like, that was a disaster. But the markets... So our original venue then decided they didn't want us anymore. So that was like nightmare. But then Radisson, so I've got big love for Radisson Red. They've been my like day ones. So we moved to Urban Market there. They actually built us a shop which still operates till today.
Nice.
Actually, I think I've been there.
Yeah, and like we do our markets there, and that's like HQ, that's home. So that was kind of happening. I had different people. We had an intern. We got an intern. So we had this intern who was kind of doing different things. I missed also, which is a really great part of the story, is that we signed the contract for the World Cup. 2 weeks later, Mel found out she was pregnant.
Oh.
So she was actually like 7 months pregnant when the World Cup happened, and she got COVID, so she never actually made it to the World Cup. I remember like sitting watching Becky Hill with her on like video call. She was at home, and her husband was in the crowd somewhere, like drunk and living his best life. So yeah, no, it was a roller coaster. It was an absolute roller coaster, but it was just like keep all the plates spinning. Like obviously, it wasn't. Like, we weren't as focused on that Dubai goal. We weren't as focused on urban market because we were doing this massive thing.
Did any plates crash?
Not at that time. Like, I think it was amazing, really, that they didn't. But I guess what also people have to remember is, like, you're doing 22 races in 6 months. So sometimes you're doing one race. Like, in the first month, we did one race. Then the next month, we did 2. Then I think the third month, we did every weekend. So, like, we kind of got in our stride.
Yeah.
And there was 3 of us, and like that Dubai Go at the time was just the Facebook group, and we were just, it's online. You can do it anywhere. Yeah. The brands and everything was all online. Urban Market, it was summer, and then we started that back up about the same time the races started, but we were just doing once a month. So like we strategically were like, well, we're not going to do it on a race weekend.
Yeah.
So no, like I think, to be honest, like I'm still amazed that we kept going. Mentally, physically, emotionally, shit. Like in the gutter by the time we ended. But and yeah, me and Mel joked. We got invited back as guests the next year. And when we went in there, I was like, do you have a bit of PTSD? She was like, yeah, I've never felt such stress as walking into this building. Even though it was nothing to do with us. It was just like, we'd gone through so much.
What would you say was like your lowest like moment in that period?
I think it was more like the overwhelming disappointment of probably the romantic element. Like, even though from day one, like anyone on the outside of this would have been like, that person is toxic. Like, what are you doing? They become like a crux because there was in my mind, we were so similar. Like, we were both, had businesses and were like entrepreneurs, and we were both like, would ring each other up and talk about everything. He became like such a sounding board to me that like I couldn't imagine doing it without him. And then basically when I found out like I was very much a side chick, it was absolutely devastating. And it happened like the event before the last event, and they were like one of the sponsors, and it was just like devastating. I didn't know what to do. Like I remember like just losing my mind, having to go and present like a trophy at this like shakes thing I was just devastated. I was devastated. And I think that's what kind of tainted the experience for me, because these two things are so intertwined. This year I actually went back to them, and I've done some like chats with them about the races for next year and stuff like that. And I was like, I'd love to do it again in the headspace I'm in now. 1, I know so much more. It's going to be so much easier. 2, just to do it with like clarity and not have that thing hanging over you. Like I finished the races, and it had been like nearly 7 months of my life where I'd been running at like 100 miles per hour. When it was over, and it was like that was over, this relationship was over, like everything was over. And I remember like my friends, we went to Mykonos and like Athens on this amazing holiday, and just being so depressed and so like down and so like just spiraling, like drinking constantly, like going out constantly, didn't have to work, had money, could just go out, like go to brunch every single week, go out 4 nights a week. Like I was drinking every single day. And then...
How did you come out of it?
I think 2 things. 1, my sister came on holiday. I got so drunk that I told my friends that I wish I was dead. And I didn't even know I'd done it. I woke up the next morning in my house with a friend either side of me in bed, my sister in the spare room, and another friend on the sofa. And I don't know if you've ever done this in your earlier years of life, where you've woken up and you can't remember anything, but you know...
Earlier years of life.
Yeah, mine was probably from like 25, so it wasn't even that long ago. But you know you've done something terrible. Like, you know you've done something terrible. And I remember just like my sister, who's my little sister, but everyone always thinks she's my big sister because she's taller than me. No one really saying anything, right? No one really even being like like no one wanted to talk about it, but I was like, shit, I've done something bad
There's
here.
definitely an elephant in the room.
And also, to be honest, before this point, I would like to say that for 2 months, my friends had pretty much been trying to do an intervention. Like, this was the tipping point, but like for 2 months, they'd been like, please get a therapist, please go to therapy, please go talk to the doctor. Like, you know, wasn't eating, was binge eating, or was not eating, was running, was starving myself, was drinking myself to like oblivion, was like, you know, was just a complete walking disaster. And my friends were really like, we can't help you. Not because we don't love you, we love you. But you need to talk to someone else. You need like someone to help you process how you're feeling. Like,
at this point, you need a professional.
Yeah, and I didn't want to hear it. I wasn't interested. I was like, I'm not going to therapy. There's nothing wrong with I'm having a bad time. Like, I'm drinking. Like, so what? Like,
leave me alone.
Yeah, let me live. Like, let me be a fucking wreck and let me live. So yeah, everyone kind of left. I was like, oh no. My sister was like, come on, we're going like for a spa day. I remember we got to the spa and I was like, I have to go and run. Because this was also a point for me. Like, I was really, when I quit teaching, I was 83 kilos. I'm now probably like 59, 58. So like I was big. So exercise had also become a big part of my life as well, and part of my journey to like mentally feel a bit better about myself. My PT I had, Ricky, was like, also knew I had a terrible relationship with food, was like the best PT and changed my life. Like I always say to him today, you changed my life. Because for 3 months I lost no weight. I barely went to PT. I cried every time I went. But he persevered, and he was the reason that I now go to the gym like every day and love it. So yeah, like hit rock bottom, went and run like 5K, and then knew I was going to get a lecture from my sister. And my sister was basically like, I don't know if you know what you said. I'm going to tell you. It's going to be some hard truths. Like, sat me down and basically said, this is what you said to everyone. This is what you've done. This is how you've treated people. Like, you're lucky you woke up this morning with 5 people sat around you that love you as much as they do, because you was absolute horror to everyone, and it was horrific what you were saying to people, and it was horrific what you were suggesting that you were going to do. So she was like, but I love you, so what we going to do? And I remember like being sat at this pool and just crying my eyes out. And my sister was like, I'm going to get a mojito, but you're not having any more drinks. I was like, okay. And the next day I got a therapist. Someone had referred me to a therapist like 2 months earlier. Got a therapist, went to therapy twice a week for the first few months. Then it slowly got better, and I was doing therapy for about 10 months, and then I ghosted my therapist, which, by the way, if you talk to loads of people who've had therapy, they ghost their therapist. They don't know how to end. Like, it's like a relationship.
I've done that as well.
Yeah, there's like a common thing, right?
I'll ghost my therapist, and then like 3 months later, I'm like, SOS.
But you know what's bad? When I was in London last, I bumped into my therapist in Westfield. But we'd been we've been doing it over Zoom.
Yeah.
And so like, when she stopped me, she was like, Giovanni, and at first it was just like surreal because I'd never met her in person. It was always on Zoom. And then I clocked who it was, and I was like, I was just like, I didn't know what to say. Like,
you're like, awkward. I'm sorry. My therapy was over Zoom as well, and it was with a guy, which I wasn't sure I would like, but I did. And he was a South African guy, and he was absolutely amazing. He was great. Do you know where I stopped? Because it got to the point where I knew that things had to like change for me, and I felt like he was pushing me to like completely relive my childhood, and they always want to do this, like live all your childhood traumas. Nah, I've forgotten about them. I was a kid. Like, I want to remember the good stuff. Like, I don't want to talk about every time like my mum and dad had a fight, or like, this is life. Things happen. Like, I don't know if you would know this, but I have a degree in psychology. I've got 2 degrees. My first one's psychology, my second one's teaching. So I feel like I have a good understanding, which is ironic because I was also an absolute wreck. Like, I think most people, even therapists are. But like, I was like, this is the ADHD, man. I've lost my train of thought.
You were saying about how your therapist wanted to keep digging deep.
Yeah, wanted to keep digging, and was talking about like, and I was getting really like irritated with my mum, and like was talking about my relationship with my mum. Like, don't get me wrong, me and my mum talk every day. It's too much some days. I love her, and we've had a couple of tough talks. So I'm like, we can't talk all day every day. But that's your mum, isn't it? Like, she loves me. Like, she loves me, and she wants to know what I'm doing, and that's how her children live in different continents to her. Like. She wants to know what we're doing all day and how our days were. Like, as adults, we're like, oh, I've got to explain it again. But that's your parents. Yeah. Like, so yeah, I just felt like it was getting a bit. And at the time, so when we came out of the World Cup, we went straight pretty much after the nervous breakdown. I got hired by McGettigans and I built the FIFA fan zone, which is amazing.
It was amazing.
Loved it. Yeah. Was like amazing. Like,
hang on, sorry. So you called McGettigans for help. They were like, they asked you to do what? And then they saw what you did and they're like, okay, you're hired.
Yeah. So it's a great story. I went to Halfway to Christmas brunch, which was like the 25th of June. And I was with Dennis, who owns McGettigans. And he was like, oh, Kirsty, I've got this idea. Can you come in on Monday at 10? And I was like, yeah. I went to a gym class. I walk in thinking we're just going to have a chat. His whole board is sat around a table. I'm in sweaty gym. Guys, I look vile, right? And I'm like, hi. And he's like, you didn't even shower. And I was like,
I wasn't expecting this.
I was just going to have a chat. And he's like, this is the board. This is the head of this. This is the head of this. This is what we want to build. Like, big picture on the screen. And we want you to build it. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, I can definitely do that. Like, I'll definitely shower before our next meeting. And that was it. I was hired by McGettigans.
Which fan zone was this one? Because was this
FIFA.
Which tournament was it?
For the World Cup.
For the World Cup. Okay, the outdoor, the big one.
Yeah, so Media City Amphitheatre. I was the project manager for that. And that was because they were like, I won't use the word, but Dennis basically was like, I'm going to hire you because I know that most people like you and you've got that kind of, you can relate, like, I don't think that's true. I don't think most people do like me, but I think like you've got that charisma that you can chat to people and persuade people, but you can be a little bit of a CUNT when you need to be. And you've got to have that in you.
You get what you want.
Yeah, got to get what you want. And you've got to be able to tell people you're not doing that. Like, I've told you and you're not doing that. And that's the teacher, right? Yeah. So they hired me and it was amazing. And I worked for them for 6 months. Had the best Mondays for the next 6 months, like going to a meeting, coffee, bacon sandwich, like loved it. It was like, it was only me and one other English person, everyone else was Irish. Like by the end of it, I was literally like talking with every other word was like an Irish word. Your man said blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it was amazing. So like that happened, therapy was happening, this toxic situationship was finally done. And like, I did it right the second time. Like I knew what I wanted and I knew I did some good deals and I set kind of good sales targets for myself. And like, I finished that and it was amazing. And I was like, right, I want to start an agency. This is what I want to do. I want to start an agency. That was probably, bar the shop, another massive mistake. Started an agency. At one point I had 13 clients. Money's pouring in, hiring people left, right and centre, going out, like picking the best of the best of the best. It's going to be called That Dubai Agency because it's That Dubai Girl. Biggest mistake. It was so hard. You've got hiring people is the hardest thing you'll ever do. Like having staff that you've got to rely on. And I think any entrepreneur that has a team will tell you the same. Is the hardest thing. The only person you can really rely on is you. That sounds awful, but it's true. And I realised people were buying into Kirsty Campbell. People were buying into Kirsty Campbell. They wanted Kirsty Campbell to do it. Physically couldn't look after 13 brands. Like, just couldn't. And then I'd be like hiring people that I thought were like the creme de la creme, charging me like big salaries. And they just weren't delivering. And then I was trying to working harder than I was working harder than I ever worked, earning no money because everything was going to pay and everybody else. Up all night, people screaming at me, shouting at me, you haven't done this, like was in the world of like marketing and events, creative, digital creation, stuff like that. And hired all these people. I remember like being sat in South Africa, ghosting the therapist because he was like, no, you've got to push through. And I just knew in my heart of heart, I couldn't push through. Like I've spent all this money, I've built up all this money and I can watch it. I'm watching it drop in hundreds of thousands, like dropping. And I remember ringing Mel and I remember saying to her, Mel, I can't do this. And she went to me, no problem, babe. Let's work out an exit plan. What are we going to do? Like, how do we exit? What do we need to do? How much money do we need to exit? How do we do it? And I remember like sitting down with her, probably crying the entire time. And she being like, right, we've got to give everyone a month's salary. So we need X amount. Like we've got to give them 30 days and we've got to pay them 30 days. We've got to give all the clients this. We've got to do this. And it took about 2 months. Like it had only been a business for 4 months and it took 2 months to go down. And when it was done, it was the best feeling ever. And I remember like going home, going to my mum and dad's house, having a bit of like, I'm back in my mum's house and my mum's looking after me. and then being like, right,
what's next?
Like, let's go again. Like, what are we going to do now?
That's interesting because from the outside, I remember when you started that Dubai agency, and it looked like it was thriving, it looked successful and stuff. And I think the fact that you could pause and be like, actually, no, this isn't the one. Like some people, they get, I guess, sucked into how it looks on the outside and just, be like, you know what, fake it till you make it and stuff.
Yeah.
But, I think it takes more courage to be like, actually, no, this isn't working.
Yeah.
Like, let's get out now before it becomes a catastrophe,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I got out before the point that I couldn't get out. Like, I remember being with a friend and then being like, you're really good at events. Like, the reason why you're failing is you're trying to do websites and ads and marketing. And I actually also think I'm a good creative. I can't create. Like, I'm not, I'm not Tyra. I can't create. But I can sit down and I can go, I want it to be like this. And this is the feeling I want to feel. And this is the thing. And then someone who's so talented like Tyra as a creative, like I was saying to you guys, has like brought something to life for me. Like probably the biggest thing I'll do for myself today. And that's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do that.
But you have all the ideas and someone else does that bit.
Yeah, but it's realising that's what you have to do. Like you can't, I always used to say, Kirsty Campbell, jack of all trades. That's bullshit. Like, jack of all trades, master of none. Like, I'm Kirsty Campbell, I can build events. Like, you ring me up and ask me to build you a festival or a concert or this, 100%. I can do that for you. But I'm going to also go and hire all the people that I need to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that was the biggest thing. And then I came back from that. And then what did I do? Oh, and then I went to F1. So this now takes me to like 1 year ago. And I was sat in my parents' house. I got a message on LinkedIn and it was like, hey, do you want to, like, we need a paddock club manager, hospitality manager, paddock club. Paddock club's like, the Rolls Royce of the F1. Ringing this guy, chatting to him and him being like, yeah, you're going to come work for us. Fixed salary, like you're going to work Monday to Friday, you're going to do this. For me, who's been doing whatever I've been doing for 2 years, I'm like, do I want to do this? And I remember chatting to my mum and dad and chatting to Mel, and my mum being like, just do it. It's 3 months. Like, it's 3 months. You're going to get steady money. You're going to pick yourself up a bit. You're going to go do something that's really cool. Remember Mel being like, it will look great on your CV. Like, you've done horse racing, you've done FIFA, now you're going to do F1. And I went, it was the best decision I ever made. And the last year of my life has been the best year to date. And that job is the reason why. Because I went straight off the back of that. I got a phone call while I was still there. I went to COP28. Straight off the back of that, I got asked to do the Dubai Desert Classic. I got asked to do the marathon. I got flown to Jeddah. I went and built E1, which is like a new billionaires sport, of electric boat racing. Built the paddock club for that. And then
doing a lot.
Did a lot. Just went bang, 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 bang. And from September until when I finished Bocelli, which was the end of May, worked. Was getting on planes, was going here, like worked in Qatar, worked in Saudi, went back to Saudi. Built, pitch decks for like multi-million-dollar projects, like built things that I'd never done, learnt new skills, worked with amazing people, and got to May and was like, I need a break. I'm tired. And so I went to Japan. And that's been a tipping point for me, like realizing that I want to be my own boss, but I don't want to I don't want to own an agency. Yeah. And people will say that to me. They're like,
people.
Yeah, they're like, you could do that. I'm like, I know I could, like, but I don't want to. And Urban Market simultaneously has grown from strength to strength because I focused on it. Like, I was
now in Abu Dhabi as well, which is amazing.
Amazing, because we've been trying to go there for a really long time, and we've partnered with Manara Al Saadiyat, which is part of DCT and Abu Dhabi Tourism, and they've like given us this whole like other window, and it's amazing. Like, our average events in Dubai in a weekend get 500 to 700 people. Our first event in Abu Dhabi got 2,900.
Whoa,
that's good. That's
good.
That is really good.
Yeah. So now
that is numbers.
Yeah. Now our next event has been funded, and we're building a music festival.
Yay!
So I'm so excited.
We are really excited.
So
really excited.
Urban Market Festival, which is going to have all everything of Urban Market.
Is it in Abu Dhabi or Dubai?
It's in Abu Dhabi.
That is
so Manara,
really exciting.
like Manara, like the team at Manara, like
Congratulations, though. That is
Thank
amazing.
you.
So earlier in this pod, you were saying that's something that you've always wanted to do, and now it's coming to life. So
yeah, and I keep ringing people and I'm like, I'm coming for Soul DXB. Sorry, Soul DXB. Please don't hate me. I mean, I'm also looking after, and this is because I can't sit still, like I'm looking after Google right now. Like Google's my client. I work for an agency, but I was hired to look after Google. I'm building 2 like global events for Google as well.
Yeah.
So it's like, these 2 things run simultaneously. And I do believe that maybe in the not so distant future, urban market's going to become the like 100% full-time thing.
Yeah.
Because I'd love for it to like, I think once we've got this blueprint of it being something bigger than just a market, I really
go everywhere.
I want it to go to Jeddah. Like I actually love Jeddah. I want it to go to Qatar. And now I've worked there and I've got the connections there. Like I see how it can go. And yeah, it's a bizarre thing because like I would have never thought Abu Dhabi would have been the point, but actually you find like Abu Dhabi, they're hungry for it. Like Dubai's oversaturated. We got everything, guys.
Yeah.
Like everyone needs to leave. Like I can't drive nowhere without it taking an hour.
Traffic is crazy, right?
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned that you stopped drinking. So how long has that been?
So I stopped drinking when I hit rock bottom. I stopped drinking, and then once I kind of felt a bit better about that, I was like having drinks like now and again. And then last year I decided like I really wanted to train more and I wanted to like run, and I was seeing this like the same pattern, like we're all great Monday to Friday, then we all go out Friday night or Saturday, and then we're all a wreck and we eat a burger and we do all this stuff. So I was like, and it wasn't making me feel good. Like it was making me feel rubbish. The thing with drink for me is drink lets me relax. Like the voices, and this is going to make me sound absolutely mental, but the voices in my head, I need the voice in my head. I need like all these like, like that's what I say to people. In my head, it's like all times. Like this is why I don't sleep. I have to take like loads of melatonin. But like when you drink, those voices stop. But then you become like reckless. Like you're like so reckless because the person I am, which is this belief of I can do anything, then is fueled by alcohol, which, you know, I've woken up some mornings, I'm like, why am I covered in bruises? Like, you know, like, and so, yeah, it was a health thing. It was a mental thing. And my birthday's Christmas Eve. It's my last party I had before my birthday. Like drunk with everyone. I was so hungover on my actual birthday. It was like the hair of the dog in it on Christmas Day. Got to New Year's Eve. Quite a lot of my friends don't drink. Like I've got some really strong Muslim friends. One of my friends just doesn't drink. And I was like, I'm not really sure I'm going to miss this. Like, it doesn't actually make me feel
I'm
great.
The drunk.
Huh?
You're like, so I'm the drunk out of the friends.
Yeah, I'm the drunk. So yeah, basically I was just like, I don't think I'm going to drink anymore. So I just stopped drinking. And it wasn't like why are you drinking? You know, like how people get on it, like other people. I just was like, I'm just not going to drink. But if I want to drink, like I went to Italy like in the summer and my friend was like, going to have an Aperol. We're in Italy. I was like, yeah, got the Aperol, had a sip. Was like, no, I don't really want it. And what I realised was I was drinking because I liked there's a tipping point in Kirsty, right? There's, you know, like Friends in I know it wasn't Friends. What is it? It's one of the TV series where they're like, oh, one drink. It's Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And Amy, like one drink Amy, 2 drink Amy, 3 drink. That's what happens to Kirsty. So like 3 or 4 drink Kirsty, sound. But 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Kirsty, like I could drink 20. Like I could go bang, bang, bang. Like drink drinks that I like the taste of. They taste like juice.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of why I stopped. But like, I had a drink last weekend, like for the first time probably in like 3 or 4 months. But I was at my friend's house. She'd made a big dinner. Like she brought out like, it was port and lemonade. So random, reminded me of my nan. But I just had it and I just had one drink and I was like, yeah, it's nice, but I
I'm
don't.
done.
So it's not like your life isn't centered around the drink. You know, sometimes it might just, you know, it might just be there, like, but it's not. Whereas before that would probably like, you know, you go to a venue, an event,
100%.
and you're like, right, where's my drink? I need to settle. I need to relax.
100%. And now I go to clubs and I go to brunches and I don't care. And I actually will quite happily. Do you know what I think it is? It's a bizarre thing. It's more other people. Like other people can't deal with the fact that you don't drink. People are happier if you sit there with a 0 Peroni than if you sit there with a Diet Coke.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
Yeah,
it's
it's
bizarre. But yeah, so now it's like I could count how many drinks I had this year on one hand.
Yeah.
And you feel better for it?
100%. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to sit here and say, like, when I go to brunch, it wouldn't maybe be easier if I had 1 or 2 drinks and felt a bit more like, but it's not 1 or 2.
Yeah.
I'll drink 20 and someone will carry me down the stairs and old Kirsty will be back.
Yeah.
And, you know, I could talk to you for 2 hours about the mad shit drunk Kirsty has done. Like, not the tragic shit, just like the crazy shit as well. And I just don't think I'm crazy enough as I am. Like, I don't think the world needs to see it.
Yeah. You know, I know that. I'm just curious. I know, like, we're conscious of, you know, time and stuff, but like a lot of people come to Dubai to teach, right? There's probably like, I mean, I don't know how many teachers are in Dubai. I'm just going to pluck a number out of there. There's probably like, but I'm sure there's more, like there's thousands of teachers.
Oh my God, there's probably hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands of teachers in Dubai.
I think the top 3 jobs here are air hostesses, like cabin crew, teachers, and estate agents. I think that's like the top 3 jobs.
And so I reckon there's a big proportion of those teachers who are like, how do I get out of this? Like, what do I do to get out of this? Obviously, you're an example. I mean, granted, the circumstances in which, you know, you left.
Yeah, I got told to leave.
But what advice, like, would you give to teachers that might be listening who, you know, want to get out?
I think the biggest thing that people have to realize, and quite a few of like my friends who are teachers are now not teachers, and the biggest thing you have to realize is you've got to go backwards before you go forwards. When I was teaching, I had a good salary, I had a nice life, I got lots of holidays. Like, it was easy. I could do it with my eyes shut. Like, it was easy. It was robotic. I could just do it. And I think the biggest thing is, one, you've got to have some money behind you. Like, you've got to save some money. Like, a couple of my friends that I've left teaching, a year before they've left, have like decided I'm leaving, and I've gone on a real hard save. And I was very lucky that when I left teaching, I had enough money behind me. I wouldn't have been able to live the life I wanted to live, but I could have probably survived for a year and been fine, you know? I saved enough money. I paid my rent for a year. I put like 10K on DWA. I went like hard on knowing that like I could live, you know? I had X amount of money for food. So I was like, you're not going to be able to go to brunches and do this and do this and do this, but you're going to be able to live, and you're not going to be like worrying about how you're going to pay for food, and you're not going to have to live on beans. I understand that not everyone's in that situation, but that should be something in your head.
So it's understanding that you have to sacrifice something for a little
100%.
while to progress.
And you have to go do shit jobs. Like, you know, I've got friends who have been on, like, let's say they're on like 20,000 dirhams now, and they're like, oh, I want to leave, but I want to transition, and I must be on 20,000. I'm like, you're crazy. Like, people are out here earning 8,000 dirhams. Like, people have gone, if you want to change careers, you go back to the beginning. You go back to the beginning. Like, as I told you, the first job I did, the reason why I got it was because I took 0 salary. So I was lucky that I could do that. And now I'm in a really good position, and I earn really good money and all of that. But it's been tough. Like, it's been tough. It's been humbling. I've got to the point where I'm like, I have no money. So yeah, like, you've got to be prepared to go backwards before you go forwards. But I think so many teachers have cross career skills. You don't realize how many skills you have as a teacher that can be applied to so many different.
You literally have basically every skill. It's just homing in on them.
All I do now is do a classroom full of adults. Like, if I walk onto a site and I've got 300 people, I've got a big ass classroom. Like, everyone's got to be in certain places at certain times. It's organisation, it's lesson planning, it's having that creative bit of you, like, you know, but it's being bossy. It's like all those skills as a teacher. And it's so funny because some people are like, oh my God, I couldn't imagine you as a teacher. And then some people, like, they get that little moment and they're like, that was Teacher Kirsty. Like, that was Teacher Kirsty. But yeah, you've got to go back before you go forward. But you'll go quicker. Like, I have been interviewed for projects not even that long ago, and I've been told, like, what you're asking for as a salary or what you're expecting for as a role, you've only got 3 years experience. This person's got 10. I was like, it's taken them 10 years to do what I've done in 3. Like, sorry, humble brag, but it's true. There's a question to be asked there. So, but I would say this country is extremely unique in that sense. Like, do I think if I was in the UK, I could have changed careers? And no, I don't believe I could have. I think this country gives so many opportunities to people. Like, people have got their opinions about it, but to me,
it's just if you take it or not.
Absolutely,
opportunities are everywhere.
Yep. And it's like, it's that saying, isn't it? Like, oh, you're so lucky. Am I?
Did you see me pulling my hair out and drinking all of those drinks?
Yeah,
like,
but that's the thing.
That's
like,
not luck.
You said it to me at the start. Like, I think people have this perception like you're so confident and you're so pulled together and you're so this. Like, they don't realise. Like, there's been days I can't get out of bed. There's been days like I'm like spiraling. And do you know the biggest thing I realised? I was surrounded by so many fake people. That Dubai girl was a character. That Kirsty was a character. She had hundreds of friends. She went everywhere. Without saying cliche, when the party stopped, who was picking up the phone? It was 5 people. I got 5 friends. I can tell you that now. Like, and those are my like ride or dies. Like, they'd be the people like, you know, when I eventually snap and kill someone. No, I won't. Disclaimer, I didn't kill anyone. But do you know what I mean? Like, that's Giovanni, you're safe. You're far enough away from me. No, but do you know what I mean? That's your people. Like, when you don't call, who called you? You know, who was there? And when you're succeeding, perceived to be succeeding,
Who's suddenly there?
Who's suddenly ringing you up? Like, you know, what I'm doing now with the festival, I had to ring people. Like, Giovanni, you're an example. Like, Giovanni's part of one of the brands that are going to be involved. Like, I had to go to people and be like, look, I'm going to do this. I've got this dream. Like, I've got this belief, delusion, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to do this. And, you know, people who have known me for like 5 months versus 10 years, like, they're coming to help me because they genuinely know what I'm like as a person and they believe in the bigger picture. And I think it's what I found with that Dubai girl is it's like at the start when it was rough. No one. You know, like you and Sue probably were like, people have always said this. I don't know if you found this, but I've found this like, oh, don't you feel like they're doing the same thing you're doing? I'm like, what are you talking about? It's completely different.
It's completely different. And even if it is the same, like I always say, you go down the bread aisle and how many different loaves of bread are there?
100%.
Compared to, and if anything, we've helped each other wherever we can.
100%.
You've helped us a lot in many different times.
And you've championed me. And I think that's like, the world's a big enough place. There's enough work for everyone.
I would say that's even another reason why that Dubai girl started as a community, because the group that was supposed to be championing, women wasn't doing so.
Yeah.
But groups like yours and mine, we are actually doing, that Dubai girl, actually doing that. And that's why we can come together after years and still be there for each other as and when we can, because that's why we started.
That was the ethos, right?
Yeah.
And that will never change regardless of anything.
And people will say to me, like, I remember people used to say to me, oh, you're a feminist, or things like that to me. And until I understood what being a feminist meant, I was like, I don't hate men. But that's not what it means. Like, being a feminist is like, I now work in a real male-dominated industry. Like, I go on a site, like, everyone's a fucking 40, 50-year-old man. They're like, what's this girl doing? And they'll be like, oh, she's like the director of the project. She's the site manager. She's that. People, there's men who are like 40, 50, 60, been doing it 30 years of their life. Can't believe this girl's like, hi guys, like bouncing around in my Lululemons. Like, come on, let's go. But then they see that I do the graft and I'll stay up all night and I'm painting stages and I'm doing, and then it's like, oh, actually, but it's still that battle, right? It's still a battle to be like treated as an equal. But don't get me wrong, I've had so many amazing men in my life who have backed me, and there's as many amazing women who have backed me as there are men. And to be honest, sometimes the men are better than the women. Like,
sometimes.
I feel like sometimes with a man, like they'll just be like, you're pissing me off or that's annoying me or whatever. With a woman, it's bitchy. Like the worst kind of job situations I've had, the worst bit has been women. Like, it's not normally a man. A man will normally go, Kirsty, you're being annoying, man. Stop asking me questions. Yeah. Whereas a woman will be like, oh, she said this, she did this, and she thinks this. And it's like, we're all just trying
to muddle through. Like, let's all be supportive.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a sad thing that we still live in a world, like, look at what's going on in the world. Like, we live in a world that isn't supportive. Like, it's very egotistical. It's very like the color of your skin, where you were born, everything dictates. Like, I was so ignorant. Like, you can cut this bit out if you want to. I obviously am a strong advocate for what's happening in Palestine. I have been very vocal about it. I lost a lot of brand sponsors because of it. Our platform was like completely like blacklisted by Meta. Like, we went from having like 5,000 views a day to like less than 50. And people are like, why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? I'm like, because it's what I believe.
Yeah.
And even now, I've lost friends over it. I have like real heated conversations with people, and the people that I thought were my friends who choose, look, there's a difference. Not everyone wants to scroll through social media and see the atrocities that are happening in the world. Not everyone wants to see like all this horrific stuff. It's horrific. Like I went through a phase where I couldn't stop looking at it. And that's kind of part of my obsessive personality, that I couldn't sleep because I would go to sleep and my brain would just be thinking about the horrors that were happening. But I think there's a difference between people that want to be vocal and advocate, people that can't because of where they work or what they do, people that don't understand but are willing to understand. Like, you know, I haven't shopped at Zara for more than a year. I've not drunk a Starbucks. I've stopped drinking. I was obsessed with Diet Coke. Don't drink Diet Coke. Don't eat McDonald's. Don't, you know, have really, really strongly tried to like do and stand against it. And like, how many people have gone to me like, what are you going to do? I'm not actually going to be able to go to Palestine, to go to Lebanon, to do anything. But like,
but anything you can do, you are doing. And
I just want to be a better human being.
Yeah.
Like, we did a whole collection with Urban Market of like Palestine bags. We just literally gave them away to people. We were like, please donate to a charity. Like, even if you don't, wear this bag with pride. And I remember being in the mall and having the bag, and a little girl, like 7 maybe, in the bathroom being like, oh my God, you have my country on your bag. And it was like this moment where I was just like, she was like, I'm from Palestine. Why have you got that in your bag? And I was like, you know, because I think what's happening to people in Palestine's, you know, really terrible. And she was like, yeah, it's really sad. And like, I wear a watermelon necklace, which a friend of mine who's Palestinian made as Palestinian resistance and made donations. Like, I've supported a campaign by another friend of mine who's been super vocal and works in the PR scene and also has lost clients and people working with her. But, you know, as an ex-teacher, I have taught about the horrors that have happened in the world. I have taught about, you know, like the Germans and the Nazis, and I've taught about this, and I can't believe this is happening. And I know that whatever happens, and I'm not naive, I'm not sitting here going, oh, one day they're going to stop when they've destroyed. Like, that's when it's going to stop. It's going to go on forever. It's been going on for hundreds of years, but I live in the Middle East. Like, I live in the Middle East. I've got tons of Muslim friends. Like, and until I lived here, bit like I was saying to you, like before I went to uni, like I didn't know a single black person. Like, I didn't. Like, and that's just because I grew up in a little tiny little white seaside town. Like, you know, and so I now have like Muslim friends from all over. I work with people from all over. I've got, you know, Lebanese colleagues. I was talking to one of them yesterday. Like, and so I just think it's ignorant of people to be here and not, okay, you don't need to go wave flags and chant and all that. You don't. Like, just be aware. Like, just be aware of what's happening in the world. And if someone feels strongly about it, don't belittle them for you know, I had a conversation with a really good friend recently who was talking about McDonald's, and they made a joke, and then they messaged me to be like, just have my McDonald's. And I messaged them back, and we're good friends. And I was like, I know you think that's funny, but I don't think it's funny. I'm so upset about it. And I'm upset that you're not taking it seriously as my friend. And you know what their response was? Oh shit, I'm really sorry. Like, I didn't even think about it. Like, I've just kind of been a bit, I don't know, like, I haven't looked into it, but I'm sorry. And I won't do that again. And like, I get your point of view. I got total respect for that. Like, again, like, you don't have to be preaching about it, but just, if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, or you don't drink, or you, and I'm not saying these things on this, a genocide is not the same as choosing not to eat a chicken. Like, I'm sorry. But like, I just think respect, you know, respect each other. Sometimes
that's all it takes, you know, it's just like for you to call someone out on something. And, you know, that in that moment, they just realize, actually, it's inappropriate. And now they're conscious about it. And, you know, it might have a ripple effect to the person that they communicate with next, you know. So.
And they might actually go and look into it.
Yeah, 100%. I was dating a guy, and I really liked him. I was dating him. We were getting on well and whatever. And I started talking about it, and he was like, I just don't care. I've got enough like problems in my life.
Whoa.
Without like, and I was like, you've got another problem now. You're single. So, you know, like, But even like our parents grew up in a completely different age, different generation. Like, it's been a hard conversation with them, and they don't agree with me. But we've just made the decision. We're not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to change the minds of 65-year-olds. So I'm not going to try.
Yeah, it's difficult. Thank you, though. Thank you so much, because You've brought so much passion today, and it's shown us like how much you've stood on your values, your morals, and like just keep pursuing and persisting through all difficulties and challenges. You're like, yeah, I can do anything, which you can, but not that you do everything on your own. You know that you need to call people to help you to be able to accomplish anything, which is fantastic. You've given so much advice, so many gems. Like, it's been fun. We have never spoken for
this is the longest episode so far.
Cut it out.
But I don't want to cut any of it.
Yeah, it's good. You dropped, you know, a lot of gems, and I think, you know, like seeing your journey, and like one thing I've taken away from it is that, you know, sometimes, you know, things aren't planned. You know, sometimes, you know, it's just being good at what you do, because you don't know who's watching you, and
100%.
you know, like, and I think that just shows that, you know, like one thing came after the other, et cetera, and just covering yourself with grace, you know, integrity, and, you know,
and treating people how you want to be treated, because you don't know, like, every job I've had in the last year has been someone else passing me along, and that is God honest truth, like, pass me along. It's all been recommendations, and you don't know, like, don't treat everyone as you want to be treated. Like, that's how I was brought up. Treat everyone as you want to be treated. That doesn't mean be a pushover. That doesn't mean don't have boundaries. That doesn't mean, like, don't tell people, actually, you're not going to talk to me like that, or I'm not going to do that. Stand up for yourself.
And it doesn't mean that sometimes we might, you know, slip up a little bit when we're under stress.
No, be an asshole, man. I am. Like, I'm not sitting here pretending like, oh, she's a delight every day. I'm not. Like, I'm not. But also accept, and that's been the biggest takeaway from therapy from me. It's like, it's okay if people don't like you.
Yeah.
It's okay if people don't like you. It's okay if, like, you don't please everyone. Like, it's a cliche, innit? It can't please all the people all the time. But it stopped eating me up. That's like, good. I'm okay with it now. Yeah. Like, you probably wouldn't even realise I was so nervous to come and do this.
Oh, yeah, I did. Because she's like, can I have the questions? I'm like, oh my God,
I
have time to write these questions, man.
Yeah, I was so nervous because I play it over. And like I said to you at the start, I probably won't watch it back because I don't like listening to myself. Yeah. I love talking, guys, clearly.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
So we have a closing tradition on this podcast as well, Giovanni.
Yeah. So if you could implement any rule for everyone in the world to follow, what would it be and why?
I think it stems back to what we've just said, like, treat everyone with humanity. Like, treat, it's going to sound like Miss World here, but like, just treat everyone as you want to be treated. Like, treat everyone as you want to be treated, but stand up for yourself as well.
Yeah.
Like, treat people nicely, but if people disrespect you and people don't treat you that way back, don't be afraid to go, thanks so much, see you later. Like, cut people, walk away, you know, just,
Thank you.
Oh, no, yeah, thanks. It's been great, man.
It's been amazing.
Thank you so much.